Here you are picking your army for multiplayer. All these units have these stats, but what do they mean? You look at their traits to get a general overview of what the unit is about, but what about all these weird icons? What is all this stuff? Or here you are in battle. Some enemy cavalry is flanking you, so you send in the spears because, hey, spears beat cav, right? Nope, you lose horribly. What gives? Hey guys, I'm Dov, and this is the first video in a series about how to read stats in Total War Warhammer. Today I'll give you a basic overview of the stat card and how to judge a unit at a glance. First, a quick note on why this is important to know in the first place, especially in multiplayer. You can watch videos to get builds until your eyes bleed, but you're much better off knowing how to create builds in the first place. The game gets frequent updates with new content and balancing, so you need to know how to evaluate these changes. Rather than giving you builds, my intention is for you to learn how to create your own builds. And reading stats is a huge part of that. Understanding these stats and how they interact also allows you to pick better engagements during battle, ensuring your troops are used to their best effect. We'll get into the various formulae for these stats in dedicated deep dive videos, but for today you just need to know what each stat does in a basic sense. Starting at the top, we have the name, icon, and unit type. Just below that is a box that shows a few traits about the unit, and if you press this little arrow, you can read some nice flavor text. These traits are useful to know, but keep in mind they can sometimes be somewhat misleading, so it's always good to look at the stats themselves. Next, in this bar, we see the unit model count and size. The icon defines whether a unit is large or small. Large units generally suffer movement and combat penalties in forests, while small units do the same from shallow water. Heroes, lords, and most monsters are single entities with only one model. Infantry typically have the most models, cavalry are in the middle, and monsters have the least. During battle, it also shows the unit's kill count and experience progress. We'll talk more about unit experience a little later. Now, we're going to go a little out of order for this next part, but there's a reason, so try to stay with me. First, we have a unit's HP. Unit HP ranges wildly depending on your unit size settings under Graphics. The value shown is spread evenly between models in a unit. Pretty straightforward. If a model runs out of HP, it dies. The more HP damage a unit takes, the lower its leadership will be. Leadership is a measure of a unit's will to fight. Many things affect leadership in addition to damage taken, such as rear or side attacks, proximity of enemy or friendly troops, status of a lord, and various ability effects. If it gets too low, a unit runs away, or, if it's undead, takes extra damage. We'll talk more about leadership later, but together with HP, it's the most important stat. Units range from 30 leadership to unbreakable, which means they will never run away. Next, let's talk about melee attack and defense. Take a look at these two heroes fighting. On each attack animation, an internal die roll checks the attack of the attacker versus the defense of the defender. Higher attack means higher chance to hit enemies. Higher defense means lower chance to take hits from enemies. Failed hit rolls deal no damage. Successful hit rolls deal damage based on weapon strength. All attacks are broken into basic and armor piercing, and represent the strength of an individual model within the unit. If a unit has majority armor piercing damage, they will have this icon next to their weapon or missile damage. They go from 16 for a horde of zombies to 750 for the biggest individual monster. This icon represents bonus versus large or versus small, which is called infantry. It adds its value to melee attack and weapon damage versus applicable targets. Armor piercing damage, as you would imagine, bypasses armor. Basic, quote-unquote non-armor piercing damage is mitigated by armor. 0 to 30 is light, 40 to 70 is medium, 75 to 105 is heavy, and 110 plus is very heavy. This other icon represents missile block chance, if a unit has one. Small arms attacks, i.e. bows, crossbows, and handguns, attacks that hit the model have this % chance to be blocked. Charge bonus adds its value to melee attack and weapon strength when a unit charges an enemy, fading over 18 seconds. Most units range from the teens to 30s, but some cavalry, monsters, and most chariots have much higher charge bonus. Speed indicates a unit's running speed. Note that for flying units, this is in the air. Units sometimes speed up or slow down while charging, on the ground, or in other situations. 23 is the slowest infantry, 90 to 100 for the fastest cavalry. Missile damage is shown as damage over 10 seconds, meaning it takes the rate of fire into account. Ammunition is how many shots an individual model is carrying. Note if a model dies, its ammunition is lost. Range is how far a model can shoot. It can go below 80 for some thrown weapons and 400 plus for long-range artillery. Experience ranks, called chevrons, shown here, increase leadership plus melee attack and defense based on the unit's base stats. Some units start at rank 9, have unique names, and purple icons. These are regiments of renown, special, unique versions of some units. Besides the experience, they also have a few extra attributes or abilities, which brings us to the next part. Along the bottom, you'll see attributes and abilities, as well as any active effects in battle. We won't get too deep into these right now, but let's quickly touch on some common ones. Resistances mitigate certain types of damage. Physical resistance mitigates all non-magical damage. Magic resistance, clearly, mitigates magic damage. Fire resistance or weakness affects specifically fire damage. Missile resistance applies to all missile attacks, including breaths and magic missiles. Magic and fire damage are denoted by these symbols on melee attack and ammunition for melee and missile attacks, respectively. Note that non-magic fire damage counts as physical damage. Other on-hit effects, such as poison and armor sundering, will also appear here. Simply mouse over the icon to check the effect. Fear causes a leadership debuff to nearby enemies unless they also have fear or immune to psychology. Terror causes nearby enemies to rout at a higher leadership threshold, but is also stopped by terror or immune to psychology. Encourage gives a leadership buff to nearby allies. Vanguard allows the unit to deploy outside your deployment zone, Hide allows units to hide in forests, and Stalk allows units to remain hidden in any terrain. In general, mouse over any attribute or ability to check what it does. In fact, that's a decent rule for any stat, trait, or effect. There are a few additional hidden stats, such as accuracy, mass, and collision attacks, but we'll worry about those another day. Just keep in mind, not everything is represented here. So, now let's practice what we've learned. I'm going to show you a unit card without the name, and I want you to guess what the unit's role is. Is it shock cavalry? A monster? A unit of spear infantry? Here's the card. If you feel inclined, take a moment to write your guess below. Here's another example. Can you guess the unit? Being able to determine a unit's role just from its stats will allow you to more quickly learn new armies, adapt builds, and build your knowledge of the game. Let's try another exercise. Here are two very different units. I'm going to show you both their stats, and you predict who will win the melee engagement. Got your guess? Here we go. Did you pick the Saurus to win so decisively? While they have somewhat low melee attack, the Flagellants have very low melee defense. Flagellants have no armor, while the Saurus have high weapon strength, so the humans take a ton of damage. Saurus also have enough leadership to outlast the Flagellants. Let's try another one. Here are the cards for Dryads and Goreherds with shields. Who do you think will win? Let's find out. Here, you see the effect of RNG in that the Dryads managed to win 1 out of 5 engagements. So, always remember, the stats give you an idea of what can happen, but sometimes engagements don't go as you would expect, especially between closely matched units. Now, I'm sure you have many more questions, but this video is already long enough. So feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll get to them as best I can. Keep in mind, we'll be diving deeper into these stats, the formula involved, and much more in future videos. So subscribe to get this series, plus daily multiplayer battles, and like and share the video if you found it helpful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.